Thank you very much, the moderator, and to the community leaders, the Somalia community leaders here, all of you, the guests of honor, the organizers and founders of the Somali Heritage Week, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. It's a great pleasure for me to join you here today and learn one or two things about the Somali culture. And I would like to greet you using your language, Sidi Tahai. Throughout the entire continent of Africa, what we know is that one of the most profound expression of cultures is the proverbs used in that culture. So I took some time to study Somali proverbs and was struck by one which says that the Somalis don't say a false proverb. That the Somalis don't say a false proverb. True enough, as I read through these proverbs, I came across another that says that a camel in a caravan follows the tracks of the leading camel. From Kenya to the entire Horn of Africa, to the Sahel, and to North Africa, and to Western Africa, and down to the Sahara, and on to the Middle East. Whenever you see camels in a caravan, they follow the lead camel. But even more greater than the truth of this proverb is a clear message of unity. More greater is a clear message of unity that these proverbs do communicate to each and every one of us. Just as individual camels find their caravan, our progress as human beings lies in our ability to forge alliances, ones that are united against the developmental challenges that we face as an entire continent. And this is what our cultures, especially the culture that we're celebrating the entire week here, the Somali culture, we can leverage on to be able to fight climate change. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, we are meeting here at a time that is quite very, very important. In no time is our unity as African citizens more important. Our unity as citizens of the African continent call upon each and every one of us with the escalating challenges that we're facing as a continent and even as the entire global community. The challenges also present opportunities. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, the fact is, as surely as we meet here today, we are having 257 million people going to bed without food across the entire continent. And even tonight, there will be 257 million people going to bed without food. Amidst these challenges, there's suffering in a continent that have 65% of uncultivated labor, losing food worth $48 billion US each and every year because of post-harvest losses. And if you take Kenya, for example, is losing food worth $500 million US each and everywhere because of inefficiencies in the agro-value chain. And the continent is importing food that is worth $35 billion US each and every year. That means importing unemployment and exporting employment. At a time when we have 12 million youth graduating into the labor market each and every year and only finding 3 million jobs, that literally means that we must create 1 million jobs each and every month. The failure to add value to what we produce, regardless of the very clear competitive advantage that the African continent have got. If you look outside, 365 days, at least we have sunshine. And that sunshine can be turned to provide electricity. But paradoxically, we have 620 million people without electricity in the entire African continent today. Africa is less productive, 20 times more than their competitors. And this is why the continent, food sector that is worth $150 billion US, is not even tapped into, and this could create income opportunities and when of importing food that is worth $35 billion each and every year and projected to reach $110 billion in less than 6 years from today. Just to give you a very simple example, because the reality is that we cannot develop as a continent by not adding value to what we produce, because you cannot develop at the bottom of the value chain. Value needs to be added to what is produced, and that is how jobs could be created. A simple example, you consider cocoa, a crop that is the primary ingredient of chocolates, enjoyed the world over. And while God gave Africa the privilege of having the largest producer globally, the entire continent get a dismal 2% of the 100 billion world chocolate market. And there is no single indigenous chocolate market in the entire African continent today. We prefer to let others make chocolates rather than make them competitively ourselves. Consequently, 98 billion worth of enterprises, worth of jobs, worth of incomes, worth of capital to build quality lives are lost. In the cassava value chain, which is Africa's indigenous crop, a climate resilient crop, another value chain crop where Africa has as the largest producer could be able to benefit up to about 20 billion US dollars. In the livestock sector, the livestock value chain, where Somali community is a leading actor, we have over 1 billion. In totality, when you consider all these different value chains we have in the entire African continent, we're talking over 1 trillion US dollars that can be tapped in this agro-economy, that can be unlocked through clean energy, using the sun, devising solar dryers to power value addition in the coming years. And these opportunities are not just about agriculture per se, but about multidisciplinary collaboration regardless of what you do. Whether you're a lawyer, whether you're a political scientist, or a chemist, or a medical doctor, it doesn't really matter. We can be able to bring our skills together and talents. And these are opportunities we cannot afford to lose, considering the fact that we have 12 million youth getting into the labor market each and every year and competing with fewer jobs. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, amidst all the challenges of food insecurity, of mothers who bury their kids before they reach the age of 5 because of lack of food, there is the elephant in the room. And this elephant in the room is called climate change. It is already redefining the contours of this continent more dramatically than any other issue that has ever faced this planet Earth. It's going to shrink the entire Africa's economy by 75%. Kenya, where we are today, is ranked as the 32nd most vulnerable country globally, and losing up to about 500 million US dollars every year due to climate change. Effects manifesting themselves in droughts and floods. These causes manifest in many sectors, including pastoralism, which is a core part of the Somali culture. Within the recent decades, livestock losses from droughts right here in Kenya are estimated to have caused over 1.08 billion US dollars. And these harsh weather conditions is only worsening, as the science is telling us. Climate change is going to worsen the situations of drought and floods as we see today. It's going to inflict pain on millions of people and cause even those who have been dependent on livestock, the losses will only increase. Because what we know is that the farming cycles have been reducing, especially here in Kenya, from every 20 years, in the 60s and in the 80s, to once in 12 years, in the 80s and in the 90s, and then once every 2 years in the early to mid-2000s to almost now yearly. And it's not just in Kenya. Drought cycles in the entire Horn of Africa, and the Sahel has progressively shortened. These are the stark realities that we confront as a continent. Climate change is no longer a long-distance issue. Neither is climate change an abstract issue. We are living with it already. It is going to affect every facet of our lives and reverse the economic gains that have been made. The drought, the effects on livestock, the effects on crop production, these realities are already with us here today. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, these stark realities that confront us in this African continent tells us one thing. It tells us that our cultures must be alive, and we must leverage on culture to be able to devise solutions, engaging each and everyone to drive transformational change and ensure that climate action becomes a need and not a choice. Cultures must be alive today and push for increased unity among us as a people to solve them, regardless of which part of the entire continent, even the world that we come from. For increased unity within communities and among communities, so we can jointly confront these realities, especially the reality of climate change that is exacerbating the challenges we face as a continent. Because hunger, because joblessness, poverty is only going to get worse. under this changing climate. And no community or boundaries, no country will be immune. We must therefore foster alliances to be able to do so. And as we unite in the solution process to drive climate action, let us be reminded by this African proverb that every adversity carries with it the seeds of equal or greater benefit. This enlightening African proverb tells us exactly how we should be able to view these challenges of food insecurity, the challenges that climate change is already exacerbating, of joblessness, of poverty. We should view these challenges as disguised opportunities. These challenges are disguised opportunities for us to get ahead. And just to give an example, during droughts, pastoralist communities in Kenya lose up to about 80% of their livestock value. A goat, for example, which could sell for about 3,000 Kenyan shillings, is emaciated with loss of fodder, losses mass, and ends up selling for almost about 500 Kenyan shillings. But this is an opportunity for an enterprise to decentralize solar dryers to these pastoralists, where at the onset of drought, at-risk animals could be prepared and the meat preserved using a solar dryer for sale and consumption. The lost capital could be averted. If this is done, farmers could restock their animals using money earned from selling meat while it was still valuable. Another alternative is the opportunity to diversify in the pastoral community, because diversification is the biggest security of every system. The changing climate calls for devising alternatives and alternative solutions that can be able to provide opportunities to millions of people. And diversifying, as I've said, is the biggest security of a system where communities can diversify into growing high-value climate-resilient crops, especially cassava, which I call Africa's gold. This crop is Africa's gold. It is the only crop that can be processed into over 300 products, including ready-to-eat snacks that can be sold to markets and individual consumers across the entire continent. In addition, even during harsh weathers, cassava is the only crop where losses are lowest, just about 8% compared to 20% and more for other traditional crops. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, amidst the challenges we know facing Africa today, including climate change, already pushing these challenges to the extremes, I don't know about you, but I draw personal, significant encouragement from these challenges. What these challenges tell me is that Africa is a place to be if you want your talents to count. Because if there is no challenge, there will be no need for a solution. And because we have the challenges that climate change is already exacerbating today, it calls for each and every one of us to be able to use our talents and skills to create solutions, to be able to build climate-resilient communities. What these challenges tell me is that Africa is a place to be if you want your lives to matter. It tells me that Africa is a place to be if you want to build and touch lives and create solutions to the challenges that we face under this changing climate. It tells me that Africa is a place to be if we want to use our skills and talents and our ingenuity to be able to drive transformational change. So these challenges should instead humble us. We should therefore not faint under the challenges. We ought therefore to be thankful to the gift of life and the opportunity to build something with what we have, which is us, and the totality of our skills and talents, and leverage on cultures and beliefs to be able to ensure that we can drive transformational change and put food on each and everyone's table. And this starts with a common saying, that if you don't know where you are going, any route will take you there. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, the message is very clear. The success we all aspire under the changing climate today depends upon each and every one of us contribution. It depends upon each and every one of us contribution. Each and every one of us must therefore craft a vision. The vision that each of us can craft for ourselves becomes quite very important. For this, what each of us need to ask, we need to ask some fundamental questions. Because the responsibility of climate change is not only with government, it's not only with community leaders, it is with you and me. It needs each and every one of us, regardless of age, whether you are 1 year old or 5 years or 10 years. Because youthfulness is ideas. It's not about age alone. Youthfulness is ideas. Someone at 90 years who have brilliant ideas to solve a problem is a youth. It is not just about age. And therefore the responsibility to foster and craft solutions to the challenges we face today that are real needs each and every one of us. And we must then be able to ask this question: where do each and every one of us see his or her skill? Whether you're a singer or dancers like the excellent dancer that was dancing the beautiful Somalian music here, can you be able to leave that, to use that to pass a message that can help someone take action to build a climate resilient society? These realities, ladies and gentlemen, we must then ask the question: how can our skills fit within the broader agenda of developing the entire African continent? In creating competitive enterprises that can help build resilience in the continent. And lastly, where do your skills fit in solving fundamental challenges in the entire African continent, like food insecurity, like youth unemployment, like declining economic productivity? It is in answering these sobering questions. I call them sobering questions because they are real and they affect each and every one of us, regardless of where we come from, because our destinies are inextricably linked. And the solutions to climate change will not only benefit our own communities here, but become solutions to the entire globe. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, in answering these sobering questions needs us, each and every one of us, to craft a clear vision. Each and every one of us to craft a clear vision and set the foundation of success as individuals first, and as a community and as an entire continent. And just as you ponder on taking the first step in this trajectory, be encouraged that throughout the centuries, there were men and women who, just like you and me here today, who took the first step down new roads, and they were armed with nothing but only with their vision to solve problems that were plaguing humankind at that time. So during this Somali Heritage Week, presents an opportunity for each and every one of us to leverage on our ability and our skills. And of course, with culture underpinning this, to be able to devise a vision that can help us build climate resilience for the continent in every action and in every activity that we take. These men and women during that time, they took the first step. They were armed with nothing but only their vision. Their goals at the time differed. But just as us today, the only thing that they had in common was that the step that they were taking was the first step. The step that they were taking was the first step. And the route that they were taking was a new road. And the vision that they had was an unborrowed vision to solve problems. And as we live here today, the question should be, what is each and every one of us unborrowed vision? Because with an unborrowed vision towards ensuring that we can drive climate action, to ensure that the issues of food insecurity, to ensure that the issues we face in our pastoral communities can be resolved under the changing climate today. So the unborrowed vision that each and every one of us can foster towards a common purpose to build a climate resilient Africa is crucial and important. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, these men and women, when they step out with this new vision, they got a response, and they received a response that was in two words: hatred and jealousy. They received a response, despite the fact that they had a vision to solve problems, they were met with hatred and jealousy. These great creators, just like all of us here today, regardless of our age, these great thinkers, these great inventors, these great artists, the great scientists, they stood alone among the men of the time. Every great thought that they brought forward was opposed. Every great invention that they brought forward was denounced. The aeroplane was considered impossible. Anesthesia was considered sinful. But these men and women of unborrowed vision never ever wavered because they wanted to solve a problem. And despite the fact that they were met with hatred and jealousy, they fostered forward because they knew that their vision was to provide solutions to the challenges of that time. They never ever gave up. They never ever gave up. Their unborrowed vision, they went ahead with this unborrowed vision to do what was right and what was to provide solutions. They fought and they suffered, and they paid the price of hatred and jealousy at that time. Despite all this hatred, they endured and became victorious because they stood for what was right, using what they had at the time, which was only their vision. This is the spirit of dedication that we need to drive climate change. This is the spirit of collectivism that we need to drive climate change. What this lesson teaches us is the spirit of kindness, the spirit of selflessness that we need to drive climate action. And all this sums up in what we call innovative volunteerism. That your skill and your talent, combined with your brother and sister, can be able to create an enterprise that not only advances climate action, but at the same time put more money in more pockets, but solve a problem in a community and even in the country and continent. That together we are stronger, that our diversity is strength, and our unity is power. These realities are what we need today to be able to drive climate action. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, with all these, I would like to leave you with 5 takeaways. The first is to be able to drive climate actions under the current dispensation in which we are today, facing droughts and floods, and already feeling the impact. We must be able to retool our skills. Regardless of the level of education, it doesn't matter. What matters is what you can be able to offer, to bring to the table, and it is your skill. So skills retooling becomes quite very important. In the Quran, Prophet Musa ibn Iram is a very important figure mentioned 135 times. Moses, a prophet who is also written in the Bible, gives us one of the most critical lessons we must embrace as a people of the entire African continent. In developing selves, in developing our communities and the entire African continent, using what we have, which is us, our skills and talents. Just as we are today, we are faced with these significant challenges of climate change. Moses faced far more worse than us today. He had the raging Red Sea ahead of him. And he had nothing, but he was given, looking up to God. He was instructed not to fear and to raise the staff that he had in his hand. And as he did so in full trust, the result was something that has never happened again on this earth. So what is the lesson here? What we have is our skill to be able to utilize it to drive climate action. Start with it in forging the better tomorrow that we can be able to leverage and solve, to ensure that the mother doesn't bury her kid before you reach the age of 5, to ensure that the mother doesn't put her kid to bed without being thinking about how he or she is going to feed the family the next day because of crop failure as a result of the changing climate. I share on decentralizing solar dryers to power preservation of meat. I share on diversifying to the cassava cultivation and value addition into other 300 products. These are opportunities that can be seized under this changing climate. And this takes me to my second point. We cannot drive climate action in the entire continent and the world if we are not selfless. Selflessness is crucial. Regardless of how skilled and knowledgeable we are as individuals, we must be selfless. Because we know in this African proverb that 2 ants do not fail to pull 1 grasshopper. The Africa agro value chain offers an opportunity of about $1 trillion and tapping into these opportunities in this agro value chain takes different people with different diverse skills and aptitude to devise integrated solutions or competitive solutions that will win over the market. Whether you're a farmer, whether you are a youth, trained to work collaboratively with one another, can be able to see more results. Because what we must always do, we must always, as citizens of this African continent and of the entire globe, shun selfishness and be selfless enough to gather our minds and energize and complement each other to be able to drive transformational climate action. We cannot do it alone as individuals. Because all the solutions to drive climate actions are in our mind. The biggest goal is the mind. The biggest goal is the mind. And that takes me to my third point, which is that, as you heard me give the analogy of the men and women who had unborrowed vision to solve problems, when they presented their vision to people, they were met with hatred and jealousy. We must therefore shun hatred and jealousy in all its form. A house divided cannot stand. We cannot address climate change if we do not embrace one another, regardless of where they come from. The entire African community has been weakened sometimes of not leveraging on other people's skills, on the people's talents, the people's endowment to build the continent and to address challenges because of hatred sometimes. And this has caused many years of development in the continent, and it's time to put a stop to it, and that will take you and me to do so. And that takes me to my fourth point. Regardless of every solution that will be put in place to drive climate action, the attitude of appreciation is crucial. We must cultivate an appreciative attitude. What I say this is that when someone does good to us sometimes, or to help us become better, be it our parents at home, who provide us with the food that we eat, or take us, or pay our school fees, or guide us, be it our community leaders, who give us the best counsel, or the best wise counsel, or be it someone who inspires you or mentors you. What you must know is that they are under no obligation to do so. And what you must always do is to say thank you. Thank you. We must appreciate our leaders in the community who have given their best to nurture, to give counsel, to carry out actions. We must appreciate our mothers, our sisters and brothers who are every day, despite the difficulties, are doing something to advance climate action, to create enterprise opportunities. We must appreciate them. And we must also appreciate those who came up with the idea of Somali Heritage Week. Let's give them a round of applause. Appreciation is a wonderful thing because it makes what is excellent in others belong to us as well as they selflessly share it with us. This is crucial. And that takes me to my last point. Climate action will not happen without each and every one of us becoming a leader. Be a leader. You do not need a position to be a leader. You do not need to have a position to be a leader. You do not need to have a title to drive climate action or to change the world. The world can only be changed by your example and not by your opinion. Leadership is taking personal responsibility. Leadership is taking personal responsibility to do the right thing. And the first person to lead is yourself. So all of us here are leaders. The first person to lead is yourself. So lead yourself to make the right decisions. Lead yourself to inspire others. Lead yourself to be the voice about climate action. Because climate action involves each and every one of us. Lead yourself to be that person that can be able to be looked up to by your brothers and sisters, by your community. So lead yourself. But as you do all these things, as you take these personal actions of leadership, don't bother about the naysayers, what people say about what you do. Those who ridicule you, instead continue doing what is right and inspire others to do right. If you've watched football, and I believe that a lot of us here do watch football, you will notice that there are 11 players, including the goalkeeper, you have 12, so you're talking about 24 players in the field. These 24 players play to win. But in the stadium, you will see over about 60,000 people. Those are called spectators or fans or the audience who make a lot of noise. The audience is making a lot of noise, but the players do not make noise. They focus on playing their football to win. But the spectators, they make noise. They make the most of the noise and at times even abuse the players. Yet, some of them cannot even kick a ball. But at the end of the game, Those who walk away with the trophies and with the medals are the players who focus to win. So as you lead and drive climate action, do not bother about what the naysayers say. Just focus to do what is right, because at the end of the day, you will win a trophy. You will win a medal. And as you step out, just focus on this and do what is right. Because your dreams are valid and your future is bright. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, a famous Swahili saying reminds us that those who abandon their culture make themselves slaves to other cultures. I applaud the Somali community and all communities in Kenya and Africa for making culture a priority. And the Somali Heritage Week have showcased this. You've showcased that with culture we can discuss issues that matter to the continent. You've showcased that with culture we can bring each and everyone together to champion a cause to win the fight against climate change. So give a round of applause to the organizers of this and to yourselves. But let's leverage now on what we've discussed here today, premising this on cultures, to foster and put in place formidable tools for changing our minds to drive climate action for the collective benefit of all. The foundation for this transition lies in leveraging on what we have ourselves, our skills, our talents, and working selflessly with each and every one of us to drive transformational solutions and tap into the opportunities that the changing climate presents for us today. It lies in never giving up, regardless. Instead, counting on our blessings each and every day. It lies in knowing that the biggest blessing that we have as citizens of this continent is being alive today, where ideas and knowledge to become better all around us. And just a phone browser away, you can be able to find information. It lies in being passionate about whatever thing you do. It lies in fostering an unborrowed vision to do something, not just for personal benefit, for the entire benefit of the community, but for the benefit of others, even across the entire African continent and the world. It lies in being humble and ready to seize opportunities. If we do this, our future will be bright. Thank you.
So